Hello, my name is Mark Staples, and I'm the moderator for a continuing series of legislative candidate interviews brought to you by Bresnan Communications, the Montana Telecommunications Association, and your local community access channel, MCAT. And these are the two contestants for House District 98 in Missoula and the Missoula environs who hope to represent you, the Missoula voters, in the upcoming 2009 legislature. On my left, the Democratic nominee, Sue Malek, and on my right, the Republican nominee, Will Deshaw. And I'm going to start, I'm just going to go alphabetically, and that would mean you, Will, if you'd like to give the voters your background, personal, professional, and just introduce yourself to them. Those who don't, you know you.
Well, my name is Will Deshaw, and I do in fact live in House District 98. I was raised there, educated there. I serve on the school board there I'm in my 12th year. I represented that area on the Missoula Planning Board and the Missoula Planning Policy Board. So I have deep roots in that area, and actually have a stake in whatever happens in that district from Helena. I'm parochial and public educated. I graduated from the University of Montana. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I've had many jobs and occupations here in Missoula that are service-oriented, including the Lions Club. As I mentioned before, the Planning Board, the Missoula Planning Policy Board. I've worked at the fair, and so I've been very, very involved with what goes on in House District 98. And so that's why I'm running, and that's who I am.
Sue, how about a little about yourself?
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's an honor for me to be able to run for the legislature in Montana. It's something I've wanted to do since I was in my 20s. I was raised in eastern Montana in Baker, and I was there until 8th grade. We moved to Conrad, Montana, where I graduated from high school. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from Montana State University and a master's in communication studies from the University of Montana. I've worked at UM for the past 19 years, almost 20 years now, as an academic advisor in the School of Business Administration, where I've met a tremendous number of students. We graduate about 400 students every spring in business, and I'm enthusiastic about who they are and the opportunities that they will give to the state of Montana. Let me say that I've lived in Montana all my life, and as you know, as a Montanan, you work hard all your life, and so we share a lot of commonalities because of our work in Montana, and I look forward to working with you and legislators across the state. Thank you.
Thank you both. The background, as we sit here on October 1st, 2009, these might not air till later, but is a financial meltdown of unprecedented proportion at the national level. Yet the Missoulian reported today that the experts in Montana say we're doing fairly well. You know, there's some ramifications, but so far, so good. Things are pretty steady here. I would like to go right back to you, Sue, and ask you what your assessment is of the Montana economy, and if you are elected and go to Helena, what will you do to either sustain it, if it is satisfactory, or goose it if it needs to be?
Okay. I think the economy is one of the many reasons we should all be happy to be Montanans today. Montanans, lenders, and borrowers did not take the kind of risks that were taken across the United States, and therefore our economy is in better shape than it is in most places. Banks are still doing well and are still giving loans, as we just discussed. I would say, though, that the ramifications of what's happening nationally are going to hit us, and we see that happening already in the slowdown in building by layoffs in Columbia Falls, in Whitefish, Thompson Falls, and of course here in Missoula. So we are going to have ramifications. I think what we need to do are the types of things that Governor Schweitzer has already stressed, and that is continuing development of traditional energy sources, development of alternative energy, and I've talked many times about my hope of introducing legislation that will help small businesses, particularly those that will be involved in innovative design of alternative energy. So I think those are two important aspects that we'll need to continue thinking about. Our investment in education and other areas of our state will continue to be important as well.
Will?
Well, we have had, we've seen some awfully terrible developments, at least on the national level. Montana has always been, in my estimation, 3 years ahead or 3 years behind, however you want to look at it. And so I do think that in time we're going to feel some of those economic problems that have occurred nationally. We are different, though, in that we have some unique capabilities and abilities here in the state with our natural resources, with our education system, and with our people. And I believe that if we take a real hard and fast look at how we develop our natural resources, how we encourage through scholarships our kids to stay here in the state, and help them get into more technical fields that will be applicable to whatever energy sources we choose to go after. Those sorts of things I think will bear us through. And of course we don't all have the answers, and that's why both Sue and I want to go to Helena. We both think that we have something that we can give to the state. We may have differing ways of getting there, but we probably have the same wants and needs in the end.
Right now, the state has, as of yesterday, a projected $300 to $400 million surplus. Now, who can say whether it'll be there in January? But for the sake of this conversation, let's assume it is there in January. What would be your priorities for that money? I mean, if across the full range from leave it alone, rebate it, divvy it up, give incentives, scholarships, the works. You've got a $400 million, let's say, surplus, you get to Helena. What would you propose to do with it, Will?
Well, first of all, I'm not assured that there's going to be a $400 million surplus. But if there were, and I were emperor, I would want to make sure that we had enough money to educate our kids across the state to the best of their advantage and ours, because they are one of our treasures. I'd also want to make sure that we don't forget about secondary education. I'm a firm believer that research and development at higher ed can develop jobs, good jobs here in the state, and some of that money probably should go there. But if there is, in fact, a $400 million surplus, it is my firm belief, and always has been, that the state then is overtaxing the residents of the state. And some portion of that should be returned in the way of permanent property tax, not in a one-time check. You might also notice, those of you that got the $400 check, you have to declare it on your taxes. So my concern would be that we return some of it in the way of permanent property tax, and that we set some aside to try and keep some of our brightest kids here in the state so that they don't have to leave the state to find better paying jobs.
Sue?
Well, let me say that we never have adequate money to do everything we wish we could do in state government. I do believe that if we have this kind of surplus, we will be asked to fund the Healthy Kids Initiative, which is on the ballot, and I think will pass overwhelmingly, because Montanans understand that our kids need to have dental exams and eye exams and health care early on in preventative medicine. So I think some portion of that surplus will go to Healthy Kids. I'd like to expand Insure Montana for small businesses, because again, I'm going to be pushing small business for Montana. Education is going to be in need of additional funding probably as well. And I would like to see some kind of trust fund developed so that schools across the state can apply for money to develop better energy efficiency in their schools, so they're spending money in the classrooms and not on energy bills. And finally, I would like to see a rebate again, as was offered during the last session by the governor. I would treat the state budget the same way I treat my own budget, and that is, if I have some excess money, I spend it on essentials, and then I put some money in savings for a rainy day. I don't want to make that a permanent tax break.
What about the perennial subject of school funding? You've both said that that's a priority of yours to adequately fund it. But therein lies the rub and the potentially billion-dollar question: what is adequate funding of education? It's a question the legislature's wrestled with. It's a question a court is now addressing for the second time at the behest of plaintiffs who feel that despite the money that was spent in the last several sessions, which the Democrats say was the best they could do under the circumstances, the plaintiffs still find inadequate. To the tune of some of the plaintiffs state that to adequately do so, the $500 million that is spent now would have to be supplemented by $600 million more, and this is per annum. Be that as it may, and your positions that we need to fund schools adequately, and a lot of people's position, if we're funding it inadequately, where do we get the money to fund it adequately? And I'll start with you.
Well, I've been on a school board for 12 years and had to deal with these problems every single budgetary year. There's never enough money for education. You can go to any superintendent, any principal, more likely the superintendent because they're the ones that deal with the budget, and ask them, how much money do you need to fund your school? They cannot give you an answer. They can say more. My concern is that the state has been negligent in actually developing or determining what a quality education was. That's what Judge Sherlock required or ordered them to do, and they didn't. And if I remember what the governor said after the last legislative session, he said that the suit was solved, that they had taken care of school funding. They have not. Now, where I live, at Hellgate, where the Hellgate Elementary School is, we're in a unique situation in that we have increase in enrollment. With increasing enrollment, we get more A and B, which is average number belonging. So for every student we have, we get more money. The schools that are having the problem are the ones that have decreasing enrollment. So how do you solve that problem when they still have ongoing costs? We need to develop some sort of an income stream that can be sacrosanct, can't be peeled away by some future legislature, that will provide a constant stream of income for the schools. I know that a legislature cannot encumber a future legislature, but there's got to be some way of developing a trust fund such as the Coal Tax Trust Fund that can go directly to education and not be peeled off for other issues by future legislatures.
Sue?
Education in Montana has not been adequately funded for the past 10 years, and I have to stress to you that the Republicans have been in control of the legislature and that Governor Schweitzer was attacked for increasing funding for education. As the legislature and Governor Schweitzer did last session, a substantial increase in both one-time money and ongoing monies for schools, I think we will do again in this session. We can't catch up with 10 years of neglect with one session or two sessions of the legislature. So we'll be working hard on that issue, and it's not only K through 12, but it's universities and colleges of technology. We know that we need our students to be educated in order to stay economically competitive in the state of Montana, and we're going to make sure that happens in this state.
Staying on economics, just because so much relates to it and so much of what you'll do at the legislature surrounds that. Both gubernatorial candidates say that they are opposed to any increases in taxes. So one would assume with their veto power and their power to lead their parties that we will not have those, and that's not a subject. That's on the statewide level. Meanwhile, at the local level, our cities are saying that they have not shared in the bumper times that the state has enjoyed over the last two sessions, and those surpluses have not meant that they have had any decrease in their needs to take care of local services, although some impact fee legislation, I believe, was passed. They don't believe that's solved their problems of providing infrastructure development and protection and services. And what they want to do, and they're campaigning across the state to do, is be able to take to the voters of their communities bills or ballots calling for local option sales taxes, and those would be on the ballot. It would say, do you, the voters of Missoula, want to put a whatever percentage tax on prepared foods, alcohol by the drink, lodging, river rafting, recreational facilities. That's what those usually focus on. And they have worked for true, quote-unquote, resort communities. And those true, quote-unquote, resort communities are the only ones in Montana that have the legal authority to put those on the ballot, with the theory that there's so much tourism passing through there that justifies that. Now this would enlarge it to go to all communities in Montana. And I'll just ask you, Sue, do you favor that? Because it's going to be, if you're elected, it will be before you.
Okay. We did meet with the Chamber of Commerce and with small businesses downtown Missoula earlier this fall and talked about this very issue, because businesses in the business community in Missoula, in Billings, across the state of Montana is promoting local option taxes. The reason they're doing that is they understand that the infrastructure has to be strong. There have to be good roads, good traffic control, good walking and biking paths, good police, good sewers, all of those things for businesses to be successful. So they're asking us to support that. I'm also going to suggest to you that our own property values, our own lives benefit from good infrastructure. Now, what you just heard Mark say is that a local option tax is just that. The city of Missoula would come to you and say, are you willing to pass this tax? If you aren't willing to do that, it wouldn't be available to Missoula. But all the legislature would do is give municipalities the power to ask their citizens if they want to put on a local option tax. I think it's a good alternative in the tight spot that cities are currently in and the relevance of them to our economy.
Will?
Well, first of all, I don't know of any mayor in a large or small town that doesn't think that they need more money. And they may well need more money. If the residents of Missoula city limits decide to encumber themselves with a local option tax or sales tax, so be it. I don't have a problem with somebody that wants to encumber themselves with taxes. One of the things that Mark mentioned troubles me. You said processed food might be one of those things that's taxed. Well,
Prepared food.
prepared foods.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Prepared meals, like as in restaurants.
Right. That would tell me McDonald's, any of those quick places that you go in and out of. I wonder if those taxes aren't going to affect the wrong people. Those people that maybe don't go spend a lot of money at a higher price restaurant. The other thing about a local option tax is it'll be 12 months out of the year, folks. It won't be just when the tourists come through on their way between Yellowstone and Glacier Park. We, as of yet, are not a main destination spot for tourism. So remember, when you do vote for it or against it, that you're going to encumber yourself for all 12 months and everyone will pay it, unless there are some things that are I would suggest that they do away with taxes on medicine, groceries, those basic staples that really the less privileged people need to spend their money on.
I'm going to give you a chance to close. We've sort of gone on a little bit. These are too brief by far, but we have a lot of candidates backed up, so we try to get as many in as we can. We'll give you a chance to close briefly. Anything specific you want to take to Helena and accomplish if you're elected, and make your pitch for the vote?
Sure. In my duties as a school board member, I also was chairman of MUST, which is the Montana Unified School Trust. So I have a background in health insurance. That's a company that provides health insurance coverage for board members, teachers, staff, and administration for different school districts across the state. So that's one of my strong points that I have a background in that I'd like to be involved in. The other is small business. I've owned small businesses for 35 years here in Missoula and Most of them have been in House District 98. And so I want to make sure that small business people are taken care of. I'm also a Marine Corps veteran. I want to be the go-to person in Helena for Veterans Affairs. I think it's been far too long since our veterans have been adequately cared for here in the state. There's no reason why veterans in Missoula need to travel to Helena to get a shot of penicillin when it could be done here in Missoula. Those are some of the things that I think are strong points in my background that will allow me to represent the people of House District 98 to my fullest ability. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity from both Bresnan and MCAT and for Mark Staples for hosting this event.
Thank you, Will. Sue?
My issues are good jobs with benefits, a strong education system, expanded health care for businesses and children of low-income families, alternative energy development and traditional energy development to improve our economy. So I have been going door to door in House District 98 since last March. I knocked on every door for the primary, and I'm knocking on every door again this fall. It's been an honor for me to meet many of you, to hear about the situations that you're facing. A wife with cancer whose husband will be facing $3,000 a month prescription bills, people trying to make small businesses work, people who have lost their jobs and are trying to stay in this community. I want you to know that I'm hearing what you're saying and that I will represent you in Helena to the best of my ability. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to meeting more of you in the weeks to come.
Well, thank you both. As I've noted at the conclusion of previous interviews, as I go across the state doing this, I am very deeply struck by the quality, the background, the experience, the education, and the civic commitment of the candidates for the legislature in Montana. Anybody who makes a joke of the legislature or what do they do or, you know, oh, God help us, the legislature's in session, is not on target. This is such a quality field, and you two are no exception. And on behalf of myself, Bresnan Communications, the Montana Cable Telecommunications Association, and I'm sure your fellow Missoula citizens, I thank you for running. I thank you even more for the arduous task of serving should you be elected. So thank you for coming. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.